Oh, the Jubilee is coming. Oh, the Jubilee is coming. Welcome. Oh, sorry. I don't smoke, but you know, thought I'd play the part. Well, welcome to what I would call the Aquarian Spirit, or How to Survive the Apocalypse. Well, that sounds very frightening. The apocalypse. Are we all gonna die? No, we're not all gonna die. But there will be some moaning, like my cat's doing from the other room, because I had to lock her out. She gets a little nervous, and I think we're all feeling a little bit nervous lately. There's all this weird stuff going on, and it might be nice to kind of have a map where we've been, what we've been through, where we're going, and so, yeah, well, welcome to Act 3. I know that sounds strange. I know that usually would start with Act 1, but we're actually in Act 3 of our story, which is The Return of the Jedi, or the Aquarian Spirit. And if you're familiar with Star Wars, we're going to use that to help explain some of the Aquarian stuff, because there's some secret messages in that movie series, the original ones. And that can be very helpful to understand this Aquarian nonsense. So, first of all, yeah, so this is Act 3, 2022, or whenever you're watching this after that, is the beginning of Act 3, which is Aquarius. And all of these stories through time that we call the Ages of Time, they progress in 3-act series. The one that we're in right now is called the Individual Masculine series, and the 3rd act is the Age of Aquarius that we're starting now. And I know you might have heard a song, The Coming of the Age of Aquarius, and harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust abound. Well, that might be a simplification. There's going to be a little chaos. And, but I'm here to help you understand where we are and how you can adapt. So, you might say, astrology, what a bunch of bullshit. And you might be right. There's a lot of BS astrology out there, and a lot of people don't understand it. And I don't really want you to understand a ton of astrology. Really, what I want you to understand is that Earth, as a planet, kind of moves in episodes. Like we're watching a big TV show, or just pretend this is a reality TV show, and we're on season 3, and we've already done season 1 and season 2, and I'm a very strong believer in reincarnation, so it's very likely that you've participated in season 1 and season 2, and now you're in season 3. And so I'm here to help catch you up on where the plot is going, so that maybe you can figure out how you want to contribute. And so I said the Individual Masculine is the name of the 3-act series, and you might say, whoa, 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 masculine, feminine? What I'm talking about is there are fundamental forces, yin and yang, positive and negative, masculine and feminine, and right now we're in a very masculine 3 trilogy, okay? And we started this back, if we got in our time machine, went back 4,000 years, that would be the beginning of this story. And what was going on 4,000 years ago was, it was the very end of a very feminine matriarchal trilogy. And so people around the world were kind of sick of that, because At the end of that trilogy, they had perfected agriculture, and powerful people had found a way to stay in power over hundreds and hundreds of years by having slave labor, using agriculture to sort of stay in their ivory towers. They could just get the food that they need and survive, keep an iron grip on society. And so there was a rebellion, just like in Star Wars. And that rebellion has been going on for 4,000 years. And so we are right about the point where the rebellion can finally throw off that old power system that was hanging around because of humans adopting agriculture and so agriculture. Let's just stick with agriculture. There's all kinds of other stuff. But so we're going to talk about a few famous figures in history. I wonder if I have a Bible in any of these. Well, I can't find the Bible, but you might remember that the Bible comes in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And when I use something like the Bible, I'm definitely not going to be a Bible thumper. I'm not a Christian, and I'm not here to prove Christianity. I'm actually talking about really worldwide trends. When I talk about the Bible, it's just I'm probably, this is probably going to be consumed by Westerners. Most likely, we'll see. But people are probably familiar with the Bible. And some people might be sick to death of the Bible. Trust me, I get it. But in the Bible, there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. And that is Act 1 and Act 2 of our trilogy. The Old Testament is the first episode of Star Wars. I know it's the fourth, but A New Hope, where Luke Skywalker enters the scene. And the New Testament in the Bible is episode 2, The Empire Strikes Back. And we are currently living in episode 3, which in Star Wars was The Return of the Jedi, which is the triumph of the rebellion. And we're not exactly at that triumph yet, but we are pretty close. And so if we go back to that Old Testament, that was actually the Age of Aries. And what happened with the Age of Aries was that was a huge rebellion against the Age of Taurus that came before it, where agriculture had been perfected, pharaohs ruled in dynasties, there was extreme order, there was slavery, and some people surprisingly weren't huge fans of slavery. And so the Old Testament starts, I mean, if you fast forward to about Exodus or so, with this fella named Moses, who had just about had enough of this slavery bullshit. He was actually from within Egypt. His name is actually Egyptian in origin, and he decided that the sort of corrupt, stagnant world of the power of Egypt and the pharaohs was not his bag and not his jam, and he said, nope, I'm going to fight the power, and I am going to lead a rebellion away from this really overly feminine, the remains of matriarchy, which had really just become oppressive, invasive, superficial, idol-worshipping. And Moses was like, yeah, I think I'm done with this. And so Moses, led by God, to start something new, which was based on a very warrior-like masculine energy. And Moses was not the only person bringing this kind of energy. It was also happening in pre-imperial China and also in India. And so I just like to speak about Moses because there's more people familiar with the Old Testament. And so Moses was like Luke Skywalker. He was rushing into battle. He was a Rambo Messiah. He was angry. He didn't mind killing people. And what he was doing was the only thing that could defeat that corrupt power system of the pharaohs was just rage at that point. And so Moses knew well and good enough from talking to his buddy God that you can't just rage because that's going to burn you out. So he developed like a system of laws to try and temper that angry, fiery warrior spirit. And that's what Judaism is. It's a very, very, very huge simplification. But Judaism was a rebellion against the Egyptian power structure, and which was the end of this really old matriarchal system. And Judaism said, well, we can't beat them at the feminine matriarchal thing, so we're going to go with this warrior masculine approach. And it's not like they chose it, it's just, that's just Earth, the TV show, that's just how it goes. It goes in circles, and it was time for that energy to come back into the world. And so, unsurprisingly, when you bring some really ragey masculine warrior energy into the world, you might end up with a few wars, and you might have some people getting PTSD after a couple thousand years of that vibe. And so when the time of the New Testament came around, and also some other things like Buddhism and Taoism in the East, when that energy started arriving on the scene, which was the Age of Pisces, that's episode 2 in our trilogy. Well, see, what happened was you can't do Aries forever because weapons had proliferated. People were using chariots now. They had better technology for building swords and armor. People were worshiping death in the Colosseum in Rome. Alexander the Great was conquering the known world with ease. It was the end of that, hey, we can be warriors now kind of vibe of episode 1, which was the Age of Aries. So after that happened, the peacemakers came in, and principally like Jesus, what Jesus represents in the New Testament was episode 2 of the trilogy. And that was, like in Star Wars, the Empire Strikes Back. And that's pretty much what happened. So the Aries fiery kind of reaction to those old matriarchal energies, they could not fully defeat it in the West or the East. It would not be until now that could possibly be defeated. So the Age of Pisces, what we're coming out of, was kind of a retreat. And there were Christianity came out of that, Islam came out of that movement, Taoism, Buddhism, those all came out of this, well, we've learned how to fight, but we don't want to kill everybody, and it kind of smells bad and there's blood everywhere, so let's learn this peace thing. And really, what was happening there, and this is a very important point to understand, the first episode was like the right hand, learning the strong individual masculine, the aggressive, the assertive, the, hey, let's fight for our rights to party or just live. Didn't think I'd bring the Beastie Boys into this, but hey. So that was the right hand, which was a necessary energy to rejuvenate spirituality and humanity with a spirit of the individual fighting with a sense of honor, like sort of like a Klingon from Star Trek. I love science fiction. So then the left hand needed to be learned on an individual level after we had kind of left behind these really old matriarchal collectivist systems. And so Jesus was saying, okay, we've got the warrior energy, now learn to pick your battles, learn not to be a huge reactionary, but still be assertive. And so Moses and these other people in the East, I don't want to get too. I mean, Moses is just the best example because he's so prototypical Aries, and even in the movie Star Wars, Luke Skywalker in the first movie is just like, hell, get me into battle, I don't care, I just want to fight. And he's like, oh, wait, I'm getting this sort of spirituality. I can fight. It's okay. And then in the second movie, he gets tested. He has to go deep within. And that's what we're coming out of right now. And so we'll talk more in depth about this stuff in the future. And I really, really want you to get a really deep understanding of this whole narrative, because I think when you do really understand it and put it all together, you will really see why everything is so confused right now and which way to go. But we are entering episode 3, and we are in episode 3. We've learned how to be warriors, obviously. We've also learned how to be chill and not cut somebody's head off if they call you chicken, or engage in like unending, We've attempted to learn peace to a sufficient level, and that is not perfect. Definitely not perfect. And this is I'm speaking in generalities for the whole of the world. I'm not speaking about everybody. There are examples of people who get it. There are examples of masters. There are examples of people who absolutely don't get it. It doesn't matter. What we're talking about is the narrative here. And we're entering episode 3, and it is the Return of the Jedi. We've committed to being individual warriors. We've spent another 2,000 years learning how to meditate, learning how to go within, how to find God within ourselves. And now we need to put those pieces together. And this is a really, really difficult thing. A lot of people are really just trying to go back to that episode 1, which was the Age of Aries, and they're like, hell, we just need a machine gun and we'll be fine. Just like killing is great. I'm gonna put a skull in my truck and like, it's all about really just individual achievement. And in some ways that is like actually a correct assessment of what is going on. You'll see like people being obsessed with the 10 Commandments all of a sudden, almost more interested in the Old Testament than the New Testament. A lot of people really don't understand this. But that's because the second episode of our trilogy was... This is a masculine trilogy, and the second episode was a feminine episode, but overall, it's a masculine trilogy. And we're not just going to be sitting around for the next 2 years, meditating, singing Kumbaya in the fields, nobody really like being assertive. I know some people really want that to be reality, but that is not what is coming. what is coming is a really strong energy, and it will come within the next 3 or 4 years, and it is going to be like a tornado of strong, assertive, even aggressive energy to remake the world. And I hope that you can be ready for it. And I hope that you keep watching, because I've really put in the time. I'm not just a nobody. I've worked as a mental health counselor. I've also worked as a computer engineer. I've studied world religion. I have a degree in economics and philosophy. I have the credentials, but I've also done the work, and a lot of what I do is I also really channel and improvise a lot of these lessons. I'm not going off of a script. I really like my lessons to be extemporized, and so we'll have fun. Play some music maybe. I will have some other video series, but this is really the big picture, because there's a lot of people talking about New Age, and they might even know about the Age of Aquarius. You probably definitely know about, like, you've heard New Age before. It's really everywhere, and it's largely misunderstood. It's not going to be probably what you think it is, but it's going to be fun. It's definitely not going to be as crazy as things are right now. It's definitely going to be mental, creative. It could go bad if people don't really get their act together. This is a very crucial time in the history of the earth. I wouldn't really be putting my neck out with my writing and my book, Hormones and Sacrilege. There's a link on my site for that. I wouldn't be sticking my neck out if I did not really have a concern that things could really go badly. Just like in the movie Star Wars, there is really an evil empire that is really trying to hold on to a very ancient power. And there has been a secret plan to overthrow that power. But it requires people to step up and put that left and that right hand, left and right, together to really embrace this new Aquarian energy, which is a blending of those first two acts. It is a warrior energy. It is direct. It is also sensitive. It is connected to spirit. It listens to emotion and to the voice within. So what's happening in the world right now is a lot of people, they just want either one. No, all feminine. No, all masculine. And it's somewhere in the middle. I'm a transgender woman. I've lived as a man. I've lived as a woman. I'm somewhere in the middle. I really had to go through a lot of exploration of my own gender to get how to put these pieces together in my own life. And the really strange thing is that even in my own life, I'm kind of entering Act 3 of my own story. I spent 10 long years doing a very masculine thing, and then 10 long years doing a very feminine thing in my adult life. I'm older than that. And then now I'm trying to put those things together, and I've had to make really tough decisions to do that. But what I've found is that by making the correct sacrifices in my life, really trying to blend that masculine and that feminine, I've found a strength. I've found a peace. I've found a new hope. And I've learned how to be a Jedi. Now, that's a bit of a simplification too. But there is like a force in the universe which binds us and connects us. And your interpretation of it might be different than another person's interpretation of it. It's very mysterious, and it is beyond understanding, but it is there. And the age of Aquarius can be a tremendously wonderful, stable, really fun age. And that brings me to my last thing. So I've started a church, but it's a fake church. It's not a real church, because I'm not trying to start a real church. One of the problems these days is really just churches and cults. People are losing themselves in these groups when it's super important to retain your critical thinking skills and to be an individual thinker. We don't need more sort of people just following orders on the planet. However, I do like the idea of a church just because it's kind of a place where you go to get inspiration. And I call my church the fake Church of Rock. Might sound a little strange. Rock, what does that have to do? Well, it actually has to do with rock and roll. And I see what I view as the seeds of the Aquarius age is really rock and roll, which comes from blues, which comes from the African American experience, which is a blending of African, really like African ways of, I don't know if I want to call it worship, but African belief systems, and merging those with living in America, which is very Western. Putting those two together created things like blues, created things like jazz, created things like rock and roll. And the spirit of that, the spirit of that guy behind me, John Lennon, the spirit of the black preacher, the spirit of the ecstatic, the spirit of gospel, the spirit of the 1960s in America, that is the Aquarian spirit. And it is rock and roll, and it very well might be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Because we're getting out of that Empire Strikes Back, testing, Pisces, and we are ready to throw off the chains of this evil empire and dance with the Ewoks in the forest. Well, I mean, if you have a forest and if you have an Ewok. But I really do believe that there is something magical in rock and roll, in that black church experience, in a lot of the stuff that's come out of America in the last, or the United States of America in the last 100, 200 years. The United States is a very, very important, special place as far as the Aquarius age is concerned. All of those world Aries and Pisces faiths came together in the United States, and what's coming out of it is something totally new. We can't fall back on these old faiths. We've got to go boldly into the future, and that's what this series is about. Creating a new earth, a new way of being that's very familiar. You probably already really know and respect a lot of people that have been doing the Aquarius thing for over 100 years. People like John Lennon, Friedrich Nietzsche, jazz singers like Aretha Franklin, Malcolm X, people that they've developed their sensitivity, their artistry, and now they're warriors for peace and love, and that's the Aquarian spirit. So I hope you'll join me, because there's a lot to share, and there's a lot to get inspired by. I'm inspired by all these people. They've carried the torch. I've lit the torch in myself. I have other people that are really joining this army of love and art to to start something new. It might seem like times are dark. It might seem scary outside. It might seem like all hope is lost. But the trite axiom, it's always darkest before the dawn, it's not as trite as you think it is. Hold on, folks, it's a bumpy ride, but we are going up into the sky, and I hope you'll come with me. I'm Pope Abbey, but just call me Abbey if you like, and I will see you on our next installment, and keep on rocking in the free world. The energy is there. If you know how to grab it, there is hope in the world. Oh, somebody died today. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate that. Oh, somebody died today. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate that. All you ever had is in the middle of your soul. You never needed all the money to eradicate the whole.